The evolution of the Republican Party began in 1854. The 1850s was a transparent decade in the United States history. More abolitionists were moving up north and they were opposing slavery. And in 1854, a group of Whigs got together and they formed the Republican Party. They tried in 1856 to get their president elected, and it didn't happen in 1856. 4 years later, in 1860, they finally got their president elected, and his name was Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln became the president in 1860, the first president of the Republican Party. And the Republican Party was made up of ex-Whigs, free soldiers, Yankees, abolitionists, Protestants, and other people who were opposed to slavery. The Republican Party separated themselves from the Confederates of the South. And when that happened, a civil war began in 1861 until 1865. The Republican Party were for conservatives. They wanted lower taxes. They wanted a smaller government. They wanted free market capitalism. They wanted to be able to engage in free trade. And they wanted restrictions on labor unions. The Republican Party represented things such as freedom, prosperity, opportunity, and the abolishment of slavery. They were the first party to fight for the rights of African Americans. And by 1862, the 13th Amendment was established by the pressure of the Republican Party. A few years later, the 14th and 15th Amendment was established, also done by the Republican Party. Those three amendments are the three most important amendments in the Constitution because it established everybody as American citizens who were born on American soil. I believe that the ideology, political party that I chose, gives me the idea of the American dream. It's because they wanted to change what had been going on from the 1850s back, where slavery was legal, and they were willing to fight in war and shed blood in the Civil War in order to accomplish their goals. The first 2.5 years they were losing, but after Abraham Lincoln emancipated the slaves and established the 13th Amendment, African Americans, free slaves and escaped slaves joined the Union Army, and they helped them to defeat the South, the Confederation, and the Democratic Party. They won in 1865. A few days later, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and there was a Reconstruction period between 1865 and 1877, where over 2,000 African Americans were government officials, from congressmen to senators to mayors to governors to the House of Representatives. 1877, that ended with the Great Compromise, when the Democratic Party and the Republican Party made an agreement, and they gave all the land that they gave to the African Americans, and they took it back and that's when the beginning of Jim Crow began. And so for me, the Republican Party is the establishment of the American dream, because even 100 years later, during the Civil Rights Movement, there was the Democratic Party opposed of the Civil Rights Bill, and they filibustered the bill for over 60 days, trying for it not to be passed. And it took 83% of the Republican vote for the Civil Rights Bill to be passed. And therefore, I feel that the Republican Party has done more for Christians, has done more for conservatives, and has done more for African Americans than the Democratic Party has done. And therefore, they represent the ideology of the American dream, in my view. Both parties have made mistakes historically, but because the Republican Party still represents for the Christians, still represents for the conservatives, and still represents for the African Americans who want to eliminate themselves as political slaves, I choose the Republican Party as my political ideology for the American dream. Thank you.